Luis Resto was a light-punching, high-level journeyman boxer, ranked 10th in the world in his weight class. Not the champ, but nothing to sneeze at, with a record of 20 wins and 8 losses. But on June 16, 1983, Luis was involved in a decision that not only ruined his career, but 2 other boxing careers as well. Luis Resto was born in Juncos, Puerto Rico, but moved to the Bronx, New York when he was 9 years old. Late in the 8th grade, he elbowed his math teacher in the face and had to do 6 months in a rehabilitation center for the mentally disturbed. Not long after getting out, his uncle signed him up for boxing lessons in a Bronx gym. Resto would go on to become a 2-time New York Golden Gloves amateur state champion in the welterweight division. Resto trained at the Police Athletic League's Lynch Center. He won both the 1975 and 1976 147 pounds Golden Glove Open Championships. He defeated Miguel Hernandez in the 1976 finals. Resto started his pro career in 1977 with a win on points against Julio Chevalier. Scored his first knockout in his 3rd fight against Mike Lidl in the same year. Resto would tally 6 wins and 1 draw to start off his career until he suffered a knockout loss to Bruce Curry in 1978. Through 29 fights, Resto had a record of 20 wins, 8 losses, and 1 draw. He only had 8 wins by knockout though. That gave him the reputation of a high-level, light-punching journeyman. He was ranked 10th in the world in his weight class, but was mainly unknown outside of New York. In an undercard fight for Roberto Duran and Davey Moore, Resto unexpectedly beat prospect Billy Collins Jr. in a unanimous decision. Billy Collins Sr., the trainer of Jr., went to shake Resto's hand at the end of the fight and noticed his gloves felt thinner than normal. He became incensed and demanded that the New York Commission impounded the gloves. Now let's stop right here and dive a little deeper into this fight, because something's off. Billy Collins Jr. was undefeated at 14 wins, no losses, with 11 knockouts. So thus far, there was a 78% chance of Collins Jr. getting you out of there. He was a good and promising fighter, moving up the ranks following in the footsteps of his father and trainer, Billy Collins Sr., who was a boxer himself. Collins was favored in this fight against Resto because, he hadn't lost. Resto had had 8 defeats by this time. Resto not only won the fight, but looked dominant and was inflicting a ton of damage that didn't match up with his reputation as a fighter whatsoever. So what happened in there? The person who I have yet to talk about is about to answer every question we have about this fight. Luis Resto's trainer, Panama Luis. In the 80s, Panama Luis was known as one of the best trainers of his time, with a number of good fighters in his stable, the best being light welterweight champion Aaron Pryor. But an incident in Pryor's 1982 fight with Alexis Arguello would begin to sully his reputation as an honest trainer. At the conclusion of the 14th round, a person in Pryor's corner gives him a water bottle to drink.
Give me another bottle. The one I mixed.
You what? Pryor would go on to knock out Arguello. But what was in that bottle? A year later, here we are in 1983. The gloves that Resto wore in the fight against Collins Jr. were impounded, and the investigation confirmed that Panama Luis tampered with the gloves. Each of Resto's gloves were missing an ounce of padding. There was also a 3/4 inch hole in each of his gloves. On July 1st, 1983, the New York State Boxing Commission revoked Lewis's state boxing license, and since most state boxing commissions honor sanctions imposed by other states, he was basically banned from ever having an official role in an American bout again. Resto's win was changed to a no contest. We're not done here, but let's focus on the true victim in all of this, Billy Collins Jr. Collins Jr.'s eyes were swollen shut by the end of the 10th round. The rest of his face was becoming so swollen he was hard to recognize. Billy Collins Jr. suffered a torn iris and permanently blurred vision during the fight. The injury would end his career. Only a few months later, Collins Jr. would unfortunately die in a car crash. He drove his car into a culvert while intoxicated. It's speculated that the career-ending injuries and loss of livelihood drove Collins Jr. into a downward spiral. Collins' father also speculates that it was a suicide. He was only 22 years old. He retired undefeated, and even though Resto barely had any padding in his gloves, Collins Jr. didn't touch the canvas once. In 1986, Panama Luis and Luis Resto were both put on trial and found guilty of assault, criminal possession of a weapon, meaning Resto's hands, and conspiracy. Prosecutors charged that Resto should have known that the gloves were illegal, and therefore the bout was basically a 10-round assault. It was argued by the prosecution that this was a plot centered around a large amount of money bet on Resto by a third party who met with Luis before the fight. Resto served 2.5 years in prison, while Panama served 6 years. For almost 25 years, Resto publicly denied knowing that Luis tampered with his gloves. In 2007, Resto apologized to Collins' widow, Andrea Collins-Nile, who attempted to sue the state of New York for not protecting her husband. Resto also told Collins-Nile that Luis soaked his hand wraps in plaster of Paris. This causes wraps to harden into plaster cast, similar to those used to set broken bones, which is incredibly illegal and increased Resto's punching power. However, the hand wraps were never confiscated. Resto also disclosed that Luis would break apart pills used to treat asthma and pour them into his water bottles in an attempt to give him greater lung capacity in later rounds of a fight. Is that what was in that bottle? At a 2008 press conference, Resto said that he knew Luis took the padding out of his gloves and had done so at least twice before. Resto said he did not protest at the time, even though he knew it was wrong. Quote, "At the time, I was young. I went along." End quote. Resto was 28 at the time of the incident. Luis also confronted Panama in 2008 during the filming of Showtime's documentary Assault in the Ring. Panama denied any wrongdoing and said it was the cornerman, Artie Curley, who had wrapped Resto's hands. Luis said, quote, "If Curley were still alive, none of this would have happened to him." End quote. Panama Luis maintained his innocence until the day he died on September 19, 2020. After 15 years of trying to get his boxing license back, Resto was finally allowed to work as a cornerman by the state of New York. But to say that his boxing career was tainted would be an understatement. Same goes for Panama Luis. The events that took place on June 16, 1983, ruined the careers of a promising prospect, a respectable boxing career, and one of the best trainers of his time. And it is truly a sad day for the sport of boxing. If you've watched this far, I just want to say thank you. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit the bell so you can get a notification the next time I drop a video. I'm Jay Chave. Love.